Consciousness, a quantum state. Your brain is made of atoms, and those atoms obey the bizarre, uncertain rules of quantum mechanics. But you experience a single, solid, continuous reality. The smell of coffee, the memory of a first kiss, the feeling of being you. So where, in the long chain of command, from a subatomic particle to a sentient person, does the ghostly world of quantum possibility seem to become the concrete experience of your life? Physics has a deep puzzle about measurement. Neuroscience has a deep puzzle about consciousness. And for decades, a handful of scientists have been asking a question that could, just maybe, connect them both. What if they're the same puzzle? What if your consciousness isn't just an accidental byproduct of brain chemistry? What if it's a clue to the nature of reality itself? Science tells us the universe has been here for 13.8 billion years, but one of the deepest and most unsettling ideas in physics comes from the quantum world. On the smallest scales, reality is often described as a haze of overlapping possibilities, until some kind of interaction or measurement happens. This has led to a radical, mind-bending question that challenges everything we think we know. If an interaction is what makes the world concrete, what does that say about the ultimate interactive device? What does that say about you? Section 1. Two great mysteries. To get a handle on this, we have to start with two of the biggest unsolved mysteries in all of science. Think of them as two clues in a cosmic detective story. Clue number 1 is what philosopher David Chalmers famously called the hard problem of consciousness. Neuroscience has made incredible strides in mapping the brain. We can watch regions light up when you see a face, solve a math problem, or feel fear. We know that altering the brain with injuries or anesthesia alters consciousness. This is all part of the easy problem, mapping the functions of the brain. But none of it answers the hard problem. Why does all that information processing feel like anything from the inside? Why is there a subjective first-person experience of redness or sadness or the taste of salt? A computer can process the wavelength of red light, but it doesn't see red. Your brain does. Why? While some philosophers argue this is a conceptual muddle, most agree that we don't have a complete theory of subjective experience. Now for clue number 2, the measurement problem in quantum physics. On the scale of atoms and electrons, things don't always have definite properties until they're measured. A popular way to picture this, known as the Copenhagen interpretation, is that an unobserved electron isn't at point A or point B. It exists in a superposition of all possible locations, described by a wave of probability. When a measurement happens, and this is a key point, the quantum wave of possibilities is said to collapse into a single definite state. But it's crucial to understand what measurement means here. In physics, an observer doesn't have to be a person in a lab coat. Any interaction with the wider environment, like a particle hitting a detector or even a stray photon of light, can act as a measurement. But this just kicks the can down the road. What exactly qualifies as a measurement that forces this collapse? This is a genuine puzzle at the heart of quantum theory, with many different interpretations beyond the collapse model, like the many worlds theory, which says no collapse ever happens at all. So we have two mysteries: a brain made of quantum stuff that somehow produces a definite subjective reality, and a quantum world that seems to behave differently when it's interacting with the macroscopic world. This is where some scientists and philosophers have dared to connect the dots. This is the point where reality starts to feel a little wobbly, we're heading further into theories that are both brilliant and intensely controversial. If these questions get your gears turning, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. What do you think consciousness is? Section 2. Bridging the gap. The quantum mind hypotheses. If there's a link between consciousness and quantum mechanics, how would it even work? Let's look at a few of the ideas that try to bridge this mind-bending gap. One of the first came from the founders of quantum theory themselves, the von Neumann-Wigner interpretation. The brilliant mathematician John von Neumann pointed out a kind of infinite regress. If you measure an electron, its wave function collapses. But your measuring device is also a physical system made of atoms. So before you look at it, shouldn't the device also be in a superposition, and the light from the device to your eye, and the neurons in your brain? This is the von Neumann chain, an endless chain of uncertainty. Nobel laureate Eugene Wigner took this idea and made a bold, deeply controversial proposal. Maybe the chain only stops at one place: consciousness. He suggested that it is the mind itself that performs the final act of observation, collapsing the wave function and making reality concrete. Today, most physicists dismiss this as untestable philosophy, and it's not a part of mainstream science. But it was a profound thought experiment that cracked the door open. But what if consciousness isn't standing outside the system? What if it's happening inside? This brings us to maybe the most detailed and certainly the most controversial quantum theory of consciousness ever proposed: the orchestrated objective reduction theory, or ORCH-OR. It was developed by Nobel Prize-winning physicist Sir Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff. They argue that we've been looking in the wrong place. For them, consciousness isn't born from the electrical chatter between neurons, but from quantum processes happening inside them, specifically within tiny protein structures called microtubules. Their theory is audacious. They propose these microtubules act as biological quantum computers, structured to protect delicate quantum states, a process called coherence, from the warm, wet, noisy environment of the brain. According to ORCH-OR, each moment of conscious awareness is a discrete event. It happens when these quantum states collapse on their own, not because of an outside observer, but through a process Penrose calls objective reduction, which he speculatively links to the fundamental geometry of space-time itself. Each collapse, in this view, is a moment of proto-conscious experience. For decades, ORCH-OR was largely dismissed because the brain was considered far too warm and chaotic for such delicate quantum effects. However, the idea isn't dead. Proponents point to some modern lab experiments, suggesting that microtubules might sustain quantum-level vibrations longer than previously thought. The most talked-about argument, though still highly debated, comes from anesthesia. Mainstream anesthesiology research focuses on how anesthetic drugs affect neuron receptors and ion channels, essentially by enhancing inhibitory signals in the brain. Hameroff, however, argues that these drugs might also work by specifically dampening the quantum vibrations within microtubules. Some studies on anesthetized rats have explored this possibility, but the evidence remains highly contentious and a long way from conclusive proof. Section 3. An unresolved mystery. So where does that leave us? The mainstream view in neuroscience is that consciousness is an emergent property of the brain's biological machinery. It's an incredibly complex, but ultimately explainable product of 100 billion neurons firing in intricate patterns. A process that is fundamentally quantum, but doesn't seem to require exotic quantum computation. On the other side, we have these tantalizing, speculative quantum theories. They are not mainstream science and face enormous hurdles. But they refuse to go away because they poke at the two deepest mysteries we know: the nature of the mind and the nature of reality. Perhaps the answer lies in shifting our perspective entirely. Philosophers have long debated an idea called panpsychism, the view that consciousness isn't something that complex brains create, but is a fundamental property of the universe, like mass or charge. In this view, an electron doesn't have thoughts, but it might possess some unimaginably simple form of raw experience. Our complex human consciousness could then be a combination of these tiny sparks of awareness. This raises a destabilizing thought. Some have speculated that if consciousness is a fundamental quantum phenomenon, it might not be strictly local, confined to your skull. Quantum entanglement shows that particles can be linked in ways that defy our normal understanding of space. The philosophical leap to ask if consciousness could be similarly entangled is just that, a speculative leap, with no current scientific evidence. But it forces us to question the story we tell ourselves about who we are. We tend to think of ourselves as a lonely observer looking out at a cold, indifferent universe. But what if that's not the whole story? What if you aren't just an observer of the universe, but a participant? What if your awareness is part of the very process by which the cosmos becomes concrete, collapsing endless possibility into definite reality, moment by moment? This is a metaphysical idea, not a scientific one, but it's a powerful thought. Conclusion. We started with a paradox, a quantum world of hazy possibilities and a conscious world of concrete certainty. We've looked at the hard problem of experience and the measurement problem in physics. We've investigated the fringe ideas, from Wigner's conscious observer to Penrose and Hameroff's quantum microtubules. We haven't found a definitive answer. The scientific consensus is that consciousness arises from complex, but broadly understood, neural activity. Quantum theories of the mind remain on the fringes, filled with speculation and lacking hard proof. But the mystery hasn't gone away. The quiet puzzle at the center of physics, that our best theory of reality seems to have a special place for measurement, has not been resolved. And the profound wonder of your own subjective experience, the fact that it feels like something to be you, remains the greatest puzzle of all. Perhaps the universe, through some cosmic feedback loop, eventually creates observers who are part of the reason it exists in the first place. So, are you just a product of your brain, or is your brain a receiver for something more fundamental? Is your mind a classical computer made of meat, or a quantum orchestra playing the music of reality? The search for that answer takes us to the very edge of what it means to be, and the one thing we know for sure is that the story is far from over. These questions are bigger than any single video, and the conversation is just getting started. If you want to keep exploring the frontiers of science, consciousness, and what it means to be human, make sure you're subscribed. Thanks for watching.